everyone, and welcome to High Tales of History, a history podcast where two sisters get high, we get hazy, and we take that hazy and high trip through history. Can't even get the intro right, folks. I am Laurel, your older sister.
I'm Katie, your younger sister.
And joining us in the smoke circle is historian, boom, author, boom, fellow podcaster, boom, Michael Trapani. He has authored the audiobook How to Start a War, The Rise of Extremism, The Fall of Democracy, and he hosts his own podcast. It's an immersive nonfiction podcast with the same name. So, Michael, welcome to the Smoke Circle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I was telling them earlier, folks, that this has been a year and a half in the making. We first crossed paths in spring of 2024. I suppose I could say 2024. I just don't like saying it. So I'm like, I will start over. Spring of 2024, when your book came out. And I don't want to say fortunately or unfortunately, because that doesn't feel like the appropriate word, but your content's so relevant and needed today. It's very relevant history. So I'm so glad we got to do this, even after the gap, So I'm glad to have you on.
Yeah, I do wish it was less applicable, but yeah, happy to be here and talk about it.
Yeah, so we are diving into some World War II history with Michael Trapani. That is what the book is about, how to start a war. So, I mean, people, they're like, oh, we know the names, We got some big names in there that we know. We got some big countries in there that we know, battles. World War II is one of those things that whatever somebody likes about in history, World War II is like, hey, I got you, kid. It's like the trench coat opens up and they're like, you want some weird fucking history? Yeah. Do you want terrible, awful bad guys? You want some cool military tech stuff? You want spy stuff?
Yeah.
It's stuff. Here you go. Here. With this little creepy trench coat of history.
Mm-hmm. Like the dude trying to sell sundials in Hercules.
Yeah, I want to buy a sundial.
Hey, you want to buy a sundial, Ken?
In Thebes.
Yeah, In Thebes.
In Thebes, you got it.
Yeah, I have a 3-year-old, so I watch Hercules a lot.
It's a good one. Oh, yeah. So it's got all the things in it, And so with Michael, it is looking back at how this even comes about to begin with, which is goodness gracious, is that important? And also, again, relevant.
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a long journey. So my background, I studied history at Fordham University under Dr. David Hamlin, who's a European historian, German historian. And I think some of the things that triggered me to work on a story like this was really all the way back in 2004. I remember hearing about the annexation of Crimea, 2014, by Russia. So I remember seeing the story reported. I think I was reading about it in a really reputable publication. And the way they were describing what happened, basically what happened was, what literally happened is Vladimir Putin wanted Ukraine, because Ukraine is historically the richest soil, the best agriculture and farming, the breadbasket of the empire as it used to be. And he wanted Ukraine, and so he started with Crimea because it's an essential port for the Black Sea for Russia. And so he ordered a set of basically Russian special forces to orchestrate a coup in the local government, to get dropped in and take over, and then had a sham election that said, we want to be part of Russia now. And they surprisingly voted to become Russian. And the way it was reported was something like, hey, a bunch of commandos and enemy combatants with no insignias on any of their uniforms sort of started this independence movement within Crimea, broke off from Ukraine, and decided to join Russia. And it was like, we know what's happening here, right? That doesn't just randomly happen. But it was reported as fact because that was the official story. And it reminded me a lot of some of the ways that World War II started, this sort of false flag incident at the Polish border that was used as an excuse to invade. So things like that, I remember thinking like, man, isn't this more obvious to folks when you look at some of the parallels? And then you see some of the rise of right-wing extremism. And then even after things like the 2016 election, you saw a lot of infighting with some of the opposition parties between the sort of Bernie and Hillary wings of the parties. And, you know, I saw some risk there in an opposition party not being unified. And that reminded me of other points of time in this story too. So all those historical events kind of led me to think that something like this was needed. There was this general sense of like, hey, yeah, bad stuff happens, but usually things work out. And I think that things work out is a much more active job, that, you know, things work out because good people take action and do something about it and make things work out. And so I wanted to illustrate that in an approachable way. And then the last thing I'll say is, like, speaking of approachable ways, when I was a kid, you know, rather than being read bedtime stories, my grandmother actually got me audio cassettes of Golden Age radio dramas from the 1940s. And so, you know, I'd fall asleep listening to like Sherlock Holmes and Westerns and suspense and like all these old radio shows. And so there was like the medium of sound was really interesting to me. And I learned a lot listening to those. They're like a masterclass in audio production. Most of them are still on YouTube. And so that sort of medium was really interesting to me. And so I decided for a format to use this like audio drama. I think now they're calling it like graphic audio. This idea of just like bringing more of the sound music production into an audio recording and telling a story that way with scenes and interactive stuff.
Dude, what a cool journey that is. And yeah, I mean, those audio dramas are fantastic. It's cool seeing this resurgence, with podcasting. I've heard some of them. I heard one about Wolverine. It was produced by Marvel years back with Richard Armitage as Wolverine. I was actually just talking about it the other day, and I was like, I know, right? Yeah. So
Thor and Oakenshield, dude.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness.
For
sure.
Lord of the Rings boner, it's gonna happen.
It's just like, folks, start your Lord of the Rings counter now.
I was gonna say,
there's one.
KT, you have you have an ally on this with you, so I think we're gonna outnumber Laurel here on the Lord of the Rings fandom. Sorry.
Sorry, you're gonna be like 2, bitch.
Yeah,
3.
right?
That's
like it's happening.
How many
we should
we
get a
get
Lord
in?
of the Rings counter somewhere up at the top, and then people can do shots to our if you are into that sort of thing, you know. however you relax and enjoy. Maybe you're going to take a sip of tea. That's fine.
Yeah.
But Lord of the Rings counter, that needs to start happening.
I like it.
There's number 1 for sure. Yeah, no, that's really cool. And that's the energy that I got from your podcast and your book, is that immersive sort of like, there's sound also helping to tell the story along with you. Yeah. Katie, you mentioned what we're relaxing in. And I know normally that's part of the show. I was almost going to skip it today until Michael was like, hey, it might be 11 a.m. or actually for you, it's past noon. So you're good.
I'm good.
Technically, if we want to go by rules on a Friday.
Listen, I'll change my time zone to whatever it needs to be to make this work.
You're like, it's 5 o'clock here on the East Coast.
It is now.
It is now. Yeah. So Michael, you have such a special drink for your time with us today. So I really wanted to make sure the people heard.
I do. Yes. I have a Singleton single malt scotch poured into a double espresso flat white.
The most adorable little coffee cup.
This is the hilariously tiny espresso coffee cup, and it's great. It's giving me life. I feel good. Middle of the day.
Good. Welcome all to the Smoke
Thank
Circle,
you.
and however you relax, cup of tea, scotch in your coffee. That is the most coffee cup looking coffee cup I have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, doesn't that look like the picture next to cute little coffee cup in the dictionary is that?
That's it.
It's that little cup.
Yep.
Espresso doesn't need to be all big and manly, okay? It's in
Exactly.
touch with its feminine side, and it gets the job done.
100%. 100%. I would normally partake in some of our thematic tools, but I get very annoying when I smoke, and so it would be it's for everyone's benefit here.
Oh, I was gonna say, otherwise, it's like, we'll save that for the second time you come on.
Yeah.
If it's one of
Right.
those things where you're like, I need to test the waters, make sure I feel good. Like, hey,
100%.
you know,
I'm down. Let's do that. Challenge accepted.
It'll
thematic
have to be
material.
a really well. I'll have to bring like the most fun stories. Like it'll have to be like an Unsinkable Sam story. That
Yeah.
way we can just enjoy ourselves the whole time, and we don't have to focus in too hard.
Totally.
That's the key.
And people say like history, if you're not learning from history, you're doomed to repeat it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say it might not repeat necessarily, but it sure does rhyme and it sure does fucking echo. That's for damn sure. And Michael, you were talking about how you, as a historian, getting into this book, you're noticing, just a few little parallels, just a couple of things between the 30s and 40s and today being eerily familiar at times. When we're looking at our country, like we're speaking from the United States, our own country's polarized political climate. This is also going on in UK, France, Italy, God, even Germany again, like where some
Yep.
far right movements are rising up, and there's this greater swing of extremism going on. What in your research, what parallels did you find to be like the most like make your blood run cold, or like are there places where the comparison really breaks down?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that, to your point, it's thematically similar, where the outcomes come to be the same thing, but not necessarily copies of exactly what happened. You know, the study of this work is mostly around the rise of authoritarianism, and so I look at a bunch of different countries. There are obviously some authoritarianism tendencies happening here in the U.S. right now, but there are also even before that, you're looking at Russia with Putin, China with Xi. There are some things that you tend to see like milestones in that type of authoritarianism rise. Words like, or terms like, consolidating power. And when you actually dig into, I remember this was like maybe almost 10 years ago now, where Xi Jinping was consolidating power in the CCP, and I, when you read what soon-to-be dictators do when they are, quote, consolidating power, that sometimes involves like murder and like jailing, and it's kind of just brushed over as a term when people like report on it, like, oh yeah, Xi Jinping's consolidating power in China, and like treated as a separate story from the founder of the largest corporation in China is missing after he's spoke out against, right? But like these are all linked.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you start to see some of the lack of a unified opposition, which can sometimes be some of the most scary things. But I think the ideology pieces are the parts that rhyme versus are the exact replicas. For example, you tend to see ideologies with authoritarianism being concentrated at the top, right? So the person who becomes the dictator tends to be the most ideologically minded. It's not always the case, and I don't think, for example, right, there are some figures in if people are referring to the U.S. as an example, right? I wouldn't call the current president of the United States like the most ideologically driven person in particular. It seems to be much more of a like power for its sake type of thing. But there are people in that administration that I would think are a lot more ideological. And so that's one of those things that are kind of different, where it's not exactly the same. But yeah, it's identifying the themes, identifying like these milestones are, I think, really important.
Yeah, it's definitely seeing, thinking of examples within the administration, like the people, like, surrounding yourself with people who have like the idea as well. You have almost like that cult of personality for yourself, then you're the person that like draws in the people.
But less fun
Yeah.
and musical.
Let's put a music on. Oh, cult of personality.
Yes.
Way less living
Got it. I was
color.
like,
I'm not, I was
yeah.
gonna say, I'm not gonna like let that slide. Like, you better believe that I'm going to point that out.
It just took me a hot second to catch up.
It's all good. It's a
Yeah.
heavy topic, so I have to interject some sort of joy
Please.
into the
We
hour.
do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely have to. And yeah, as we're talking here, I was like, oh no, that edible kicks in, which is always like that moment where you're like, that's a strange
Oh,
moment to
shit.
for that to happen. Ugh. Earlier, when you were talking about your journey into writing this book, you had mentioned like the good people that help pull that help pull out of it, right? The good people that are the people to look to and help. Great, 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 great. What about the other people? The rest of the people that would be good, ordinary, decent, good people, right? It's kind of like how did good people let this happen? We have an episode in which we see an example of that with the third wave social experiment, which in Germany, well, it's the book. Katie, can you say it for me in German?
Develop.
Devella, yeah,
Develop.
the wave, and how that just took place within like roughly a week period in California. See, I'll put that in the show notes so people can look back at that one. Like, holy shit! Like, it's the thing. Like, how did people? What happens? Do people let this happen? What's going on? What struck you as especially when you're like looking at these diaries and personal accounts in your research? Like, what's happening there with that slow slide?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I think that based on everything I've looked into, not just in this period, but in others, it seems like it's less of a not enough good people problem and more of a, like, I think most people are good. I think most people don't want other people to be generally like hurt, especially if they, interact with them in some way or connected with them in some way. I think it is a lack of awareness of their own power. And, people have enormous power, even in the face of real danger. And the awareness of that power, even the average person, isn't always there. I think most people assume that the machinery of the world and the system that we live in will run with or without us. But it has never been the case that a system has been so controlling or powerful that it was possible to contain an engaged population forever. It's never happened. There's always been the ability for a breaking point of enough people to break whatever problem or sort of controlling factor that they no longer want. And when enough people both don't want that and then at the same time realize that they have the power to change that, they do it. It's not always clean. It usually isn't, but it's always possible. And this story is really about the pivotal moments in the lead up to World War II, where if people realized the power that they did have, they could have prevented the worst. And it's a mix of both like historical figures that we might know, like prime ministers and leaders of countries and foreign ministers and people who could have done something in the moment in those like high stakes political moments. And then there's average people who, I mean, if we all recall, like Hitler came to power through an electoral process. And so the average German had a direct input in exactly what was going to happen. And I think that there's just like the more people that understand the power that they have, I think is why sometimes these things happen. Is that there is, and let's be honest, it's pretty intentional to try to make folks not aware of this power that they have. Um,
Yeah.
so like, I don't blame them. It's more of like trying to raise awareness and empowering folks to understand that there's so much. And I think we tend to think of, especially when we're taught history in school, we're taught it as very matter of fact. This happened and this happened and this happened. But every single one of these, this happens, was this happened because there was a moment of conflict between two individuals or groups of people, and one came out on top and the other didn't. But if there was a little bit more, right, and people don't realize how close those moments were, and that's kind of what the purpose of the story is. These moments are a lot more tenuous than people think. They're a lot more disorganized. The evil people, the machines of like evil, are actually like people, flawed, disorganized people, and they're horrible, but they can be stopped just as easily as you can stop someone walking down the street. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking power to the people. I think this past weekend with the No Kings protest and seeing how many people turned out for that, I think kind of visually kind of lifts the spirits, puts wind in the sails, the proverbial sails.
It winded my
When
sails, champion.
when you see that many people are like, oh shit, okay, it's not
It's not just me.
not just
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and realizing that power. And for you and because you're an author, but you're also a podcast, you're creating content too and communicating that to the public. So as a history communicator and a historian, does that change how you communicate history in terms of like how you want people to understand their power?
Yeah, I think it's like a shift in framing. I remember when I was younger, the first time I read The People's History of the United States, and
Mhm.
it was one of those books that's like, oh, I've been thinking about this all wrong. Like we're all sort of given the civics, how the structure works, how the government works, and we think of countries as governments, like systems, like states. And with that is all of these people that live there. But there's a difference between a state and a group of people living in the same place. And sometimes
Yeah.
there's several states that exist like up and down over 1,000 years, with multiple states governing over the same group of people. And so I think illustrating or sort of trying to convey the idea that you can detach people from the states that govern them as like co-equal parties. And, this is like in the friggin' Declaration of Independence, right? Like, uh, the consent of the governed, right? Deriving their
Yeah.
power from the consent of the governed. The consent of the governed is like it's like the most important part of that sentence. Um,
Mhm.
and I think people just need to be reminded of that. And so, and then like separately, I'm knee deep in a work about revolution. So like I've been having a bunch of weird ideas about states lately, but we can get into that later.
Yeah.
I feel like just with that particular, like what you're talking about with that, Michael, is I feel like I look around a lot. So I spend a lot of time at home because I have a lot of health issues. And I was talking about this with we have a friend that comes over once a week. I had said something about, man, do you ever just like get on your phone and think this was a mistake and like have to turn it off and like, and he's like, yeah. And I was like, I feel like specifically with social media, because we have that today. That was not around in World War II unless you like social media pigeoned, which if you did, fucking that's
So
rad,
cool.
first of all. But
The
also,
original Twitter. Yeah.
right? Oh, tweet. But I feel like it's purposely and deliberately isolating to the individual. Even when you're on a good one, it's still exhausting mentally and emotionally, and it leaves you feeling like really like I said, like isolated but fatigued. And I feel like it makes people more easily led.
I think you're 100% right. And I think it's by design, right? I think it taps into something that isn't new for the human condition for a long time. Like we've had sensationalized news, like tabloid newspapers that are designed to just attract attention. But the technology now has just been able to supercharge the lizard brain like abilities of advertising and publishing. So it's only gotten more powerful, and I think the technology, to your point around isolation, it's also now more possible to be isolated in a way that it just wasn't in the past. So I think those two things are definitely ratcheting up all those pressures.
There's always, I'm gonna lift this a little bit. There's always a little bit of like leftover stuff that comes out of research, I think, with books, nonfiction books, because the research that gets done, there's probably a certain amount that's got to get cut out. The editor's like, that's too many pages. It's too much here. We got to do a little snippy snip, and some stuff ends up on the cutting room floor. So is there, what's the thing that is not in your book that you're like, oh man, this is still one of these like little weird bits of factoids I have found out in my research that just sticks with me.
It's an appendices moment,
Yeah.
how Tolkien was like, I'm gonna make those appendices because you need to know about this.
I feel like you need to know. Yeah.
What's your appendices moment?
It's probably all the drugs. Maybe not.
Please expand.
Maybe not
Yes.
what you were expecting, but yeah, I think a lesser known part of this history is that like basically all of the German high command of the Nazi leadership was super high all the time.
What?
Yeah,
You were the first person to give me this piece. This might not have been the answer I was expecting, but it's the answer I needed. So
yeah.
I've wanted to do this as a story for actually quite a long time. I wonder if we could get you to like come back and like do a full. I mean, you can talk about it a little bit here now, but if you want to like.
Totally,
because like it's been on my list since the beginning, and I'm like, I haven't done it yet. But
actually,
if this is the thing that you're like, yes, this is the weird thing.
Yeah, the like reading club. There's a great book called Blitzed, which is about drugs in the Third Reich, and so like
name.
it isn't great. I touch on it a little bit, but when you're a narcotics drug addict or a high stimulants addict, it is much more consuming into your decision making and life and lifestyle than any sort of indication that we get from reading any of the history. And so, yeah, obviously there's people like Hitler who mostly was on stimulants, speed. There's a drug called Pervitin, which was made by Bayer, the aspirin company. They made a drug called Pervitin, which is the closest thing we have to it in the modern day is crystal meth. Literally like in a pill that you can just take. And so Hitler took Pervitin like a lot of Germans did at the time. And but Hitler also did a lot of cocaine, not snorting it up his nose, but in eye drops. And he had this quack doctor called Theodore Morel, who was just a super crazy dude, would follow him around with bags of injections. And he took about 27 injections a day by the end of all sorts of stuff.
How the hell did his heart not give out? And also, did you know narcotics stop you from shitting? Okay, when my appendix came out, they shot me up with morphine because by the time I got to... Yeah, Laurel, laugh. Okay, this is happening. Everybody in the smoke circle, we're about to get a lot closer. Michael, you have now become one of the family?
Does this mean I'm a history slut now?
Yes.
Okay.
When we get those shirts made, you're getting one sent to you. So they hit you with the morphine and you kind of like relaxed and you go ragdoll. And I was like, I remember I looked at the nurse. I was like, it still hurts. She goes, oh, it's going to. I was like, what? She's like, this will just help you relax and not care. I was like, I care. I care a lot, actually. I'm extremely uncomfortable. But yeah, and then they give you narcotics painkillers, which made me go out the front door in my grippy socks and a t-shirt. Nothing, I was a long t-shirt, so my ass wasn't out. But like, I was wandering down the street and mom had to come get me, Laurel, and was like, Katie, get back in. I was like, if I take a walk, I'll heal faster. They do this for heart patients. She's like, get in the fucking house. Did not take another Oxycontin after that. And yeah, and then I found out that you can't poop. And you know what? I won't expand upon that anymore, but that first trip to the bathroom after that was not a pleasant experience, and is what I imagine giving birth is like. So that was the lies. So how, like, I have so many questions, you were the first person to tell me that these guys. It doesn't surprise me, I guess, when you think about it, because narcotics users are so like there's no in touch with reality, right?
So like it's funny because so the most notorious drug user out of the top people was Hermann Goring, who was the number 2 guy. He was like basically the chief operating officer of the Third Reich. He's been with Hitler since the very beginning. He was a fighter pilot in World War I, comes from a well-known military family, and
So
and
he was the CFO of the Nazi Party.
Yeah, like CFO, COO, exactly.
Yeah,
and so he was like in charge of the economy. He was in charge of like a bunch of stuff ended up rolling up to him. But he was a heroin guy, like through and through, and probably ended up having the most drug use out of any of those senior people. I mean, Hitler by the end was, especially like when he was living in the bunker in Berlin at the very end, it was just like nonstop. But I'm going to tell you something, Katie, that you're going to be like, oh yeah, so I was right to bring up the shitting. So
I'm ready.
Hitler,
I'm ready.
It's like, I got you.
Hitler was obsessed with this idea of not seeming like almost like this deified
1.0.
Yes.
Okay.
he was like I need to be seen as superhuman, right? And so he would never shit around people, like or like he would basically, nobody would ever know when he was taking a shit. Never.
He was a ghost dookie.
Yeah, exactly. And it was probably because of some of the drugs that he was able to go so long without doing it, without people noticing. So I'm just saying there's something there.
There is something there. Do you know how like uncomfortable that's why he's so angry all the time too? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, probably withdrawing or something. Yeah. He like, yeah, he was obviously all these guys are bad and weird.
Why don't we talk about that though? Like, don't you feel like that's sort of important to like the fact that these people were out of their fucking minds?
It's also a huge part of the success of things like the Blitzkrieg. So when you think of like what makes a tank operator drive for 4 straight days without sleep, like how did the German land forces move so quickly through, like go from Poland and pivot to France way before anybody expected them to be able to accomplish that? It's because, they're like, oh, it's this like strategy of Blitzkrieg. No, it was all the crystal meth that the soldiers were driving, like, and shoot straighter and like give you like, just an immense amount of, you feel like you could do anything.
Trying to make Bucky, dude.
Yeah. The drugs was definitely the most like, I wish I could have gone
Marvel
into more.
Was more real life than we all thought.
Totally.
You heard it here first, everybody. That's wild. No, this has actually blown my mind. I know, like I had in 2 or 3 whole times in my life be like, yeah, they used a lot of like crystal meth and stuff on their soldiers to make them super soldiers. That's it. That's all anyone's ever told me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I feel like there's more to that, like, but now that you've told me Hitler's a ghost shitter and they're all fucking crack addicts, like,
yeah. Yep.
This is up on drugs, man.
Is it weird to say that changes the way I look at all of it?
No, I mean, I think like the important thing is that, all of these people thought these things well before they were in power, right? So like if you read any of the books that these people wrote, any of the like original writings and stuff, they all had these like crazy backwards ideas, right, about like race and all these crazy things. But I think there's this like this superpower that certain drugs can give you that allow you to both detach from consequences, and it probably makes it easier, you know, for them to feel like empowered in whatever insane thing that they're doing. So yeah, it's wild.
I'm not gonna lie, my entire World War II experience just changed in this moment right now. I was like,
All right.
We're learning things. We're growing together. No, I'm so glad I asked because, yeah, you know, I figured there'd be some sort of little tidbit. But you're like, hang on, hold my scotch in my super cute coffee cup, and let me tell you. Yeah, I think if you all are okay with that, yeah, well, okay, well, I'll drink. I think if you're okay with that, that would be a fun thing to come back
Let's do an
and
episode on
dig deep
together,
on.
you
Would love
guys.
that.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Let's do it.
Michael Trapani, folks. Isn't he the best? He was so awesome to have on, and we really enjoyed our time with him. So we hope that you are enjoying the episode as well, too. And if you are enjoying your hazy little history trip, please be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss any future episodes. And with this being our penultimate episode for the season, our season breaks are an excellent time to catch up on any episodes that you might have missed. We would love to get more sexy history lovers, like yourself, to join the Smoke Circle, and one of the best and free ways to support the show is by leaving a rating and review. If you're listening on Spotify, all you have to do is hit some stars, preferably 5, but leaving a comment helps. Sharing an episode on your social media helps too. So even if leaving a review isn't your favorite thing to do, sharing is caring, and we thank you for it. And speaking of social media, both High Tales of History and Michael Trapani are on there. We are at High Tales of History on Instagram and High Tales of History Pod on TikTok. And as for Michael, he is at How to Start a War Book on Instagram and How to Start a War on TikTok. We have included all of his social media as well as his own podcast and website in the show notes below. So please go check out what he is doing because he is fucking awesome. And he is about to bring a lot more fucking awesome and also what the fuck moments here in a moment when he discusses, apart from his book that he feels is probably one of the most war starting of a How to Start a War moments. So without further ado, let's puff pass it on to part 2.
So, folks, I did, you know, being the consummate professional that I am, I sent a handful of questions over to Michael. Say, hey, these are some things I might ask about, some talking points. But it turns out, just so happens that one of the questions he's like, actually, like, yeah, that's the thing I'm going to tell you about. Yeah, and I was like, oh well, happy days. Was going to ask, like, with each of the chapters, each of these events in your book, that is, you know, how to start a war, was there one single event or chapter that was like, oh, that's the war starter there, or is it has to be all these things combined? It was something I wanted to ask him, and he's like, oh yeah,
hold my coffee, hold my scotch coffee.
Here we go. So what is that, Michael Trapani?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of moments you can kind of pick from, and each chapter in the story kind of has one of those moments. The one that I think is one of the most fascinating and maybe like permeates throughout the story is this idea of, you know, this story that's really about fear. And it has to do with a moment in time when, to kind of sum it up in what the story is, the year before the outbreak of World War II, Germany conquered Austria by telephone. And it's one of the most insane stories from that period that I remember. And so this, I think, is an awesome sort of story to share. So I'm gonna do that if that's cool, and like
Yeah.
interrupt, react, like do it in real time. Like this is not a one way.
I'm buckled
Like let's
in.
do it. All right.
Yeah.
It's story
Mhm.
time right now. I'm in.
It's story time. Get
Amazing.
in here. Get your snacks and your cozies. Yeah.
All right. So a little background, right? Germany after World War I was totally decimated. Not only was it entirely blamed for the war after the peace came, but so it had to pay a bunch of reparations. The Kaiser who was running Germany during World War I thought they would win, so they financed the whole war on borrowing. And so by the time the war was over, they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to get, reparations from France and England when we beat them. But the opposite ended up being true. So they had no money, the currency collapsed, and that led to the first economic crisis. It started to get better, but just as it was starting to get better, mostly due to loans financed by the United States, the 1929 crash happened, and all those loans dried up, and the Great Depression happened. And so you had this like double whammy of just really terrible conditions. Those conditions combined with a lot of the rise of post-war extremism, some of it happening before the war and just getting worse and worse, led a lot to the rise of right-wing and a lot of extreme left-wing politics as well. But more importantly, those folks kind of fighting it out for supremacy. Germany was actually the birthplace of what we understand as communism, right? Marx was German, and there was a
I forgot about
yeah,
that.
there was
Oh,
the Communist Party in Germany was seen as the global model before the Russian Revolution, as like this is the way that you should build communist parties, socialist parties in political systems. So those two factions were fighting literally fighting, not like political activists shoving each other around in the street. Like the closest thing I can describe it would be the Gangs of New York fights, like violent wars.
warriors, dude.
Yeah, like people
What a
killing
great
each other,
show.
like a bunch of people dying with every one of these interactions. So all that was happening in this really tenuous democratic environment, which was brand new to the Germans, and ultimately ended in this, Hitler becoming appointed chancellor, which is like a prime minister, the head of the government. The Germans had a president as well as a chancellor. President, think of it as like the King of England. They're very ceremonial, they type of role. When the president at the time of Hitler's chancellorship died, he got the support of the military, made a deal with them. That's a whole other story of what that deal was. That allowed him to absorb the powers of the presidency after that president died. And so he became this sort of consolidated ruler of Germany, ran both the state and the government in one thing. And so that's like sort of setting up this idea of like, okay, now Hitler's in charge. How are you going to get the country? Like you ran on making Germans lords of the earth. Like, how are you going to do that? And the way he did that is basically by spending like crazy, investing in, manufacturing and jobs, and even writing like direct payments to German citizens, giving them like free vacation, just trying to like, as if you had the best economy in the world, all the things that a country would do. But of course, they didn't have any of that money. And so in order to continue...
This is an eerie chat you're giving me right now.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to know, because I'm like,
Yeah.
there's things that I want to ask you. I'm like, well, that sounds like, okay.
Yeah.
But that sounds, okay.
Yep.
So was Hitler intelligent, or did he have a lot of help? Like,
he both, but
okay.
he was extremely detail oriented, a very good operator, right, and an organizer.
Because when you said like he had the drug use, and like you're talking about how he's setting this up, like this is a smart, like this takes a lot of intelligence, what you're telling me right now. And I know you're only halfway through it, and I'm about to be even more like blown away by this, but like I like sometimes I wonder how much was him and how much of him was I need smart people behind me to help me do this.
Yeah, it's definitely both. One wouldn't have been possible without the other. And part of this is like, identifying people, putting them in those roles. Loyalty was obviously a huge part, probably the most important part of being accepted into one of those roles, but also like skills that people had to fall into different roles. Like Joseph Goebbels was, Hitler saw a lot of himself in the ability to take a concept that you believed in and turn it into a consumable, even like form of entertainment or engagement that is more consumable and digestible to people. So like that's a big part of it.
Okay.
And then like,
But he wasn't an idiot.
not an idiot. No, I mean an idiot from the perspective of like his ideologies, but not.
Well, yeah,
right.
morally he was a terrible person.
Yeah.
But like, but he wasn't dumb.
Right. No, I wouldn't say.
Okay.
I wouldn't say he was like he was very I'd say like competent is like a good way of putting it, as far as like an organizer and a of people.
He was the party planner then. Like, he was that girl that's like, I'm gonna have this, and like puts everything together, and it's like, Susie, you're in charge of drinks. Christine, you're in charge of the hors d'oeuvres. Like, somebody's got to bring a charcuterie board. Like,
it's funny you say that, because he, like, one of the things that rose him in the party before he was in power, just when the party was like on the outskirts of German politics, was one of the most successful initiatives he put in place as a new party member were these recruiting events, parties, where he would go to bars, organize a little party, stand up on a table and give a speech, and they became these like recruitment drives. So he was a party planner.
a evil party planner, but a party
Nazi party planner.
Yeah, exactly. Bastard.
Yeah. So rose to power, consolidated that power, and then used that power to just make everybody do really popular things, create a reason for people to endear themselves to him. And like, you have to remember, right, the situation was so bad that when you have a hyperinflation event and all of the money and all of your savings and the pension that you got for fighting the worst war that's ever been fought evaporates into nothing, literally nothing. And you're starting to starve and your kids can't eat. And like, you're coming from that. And so anything that can get you out of that is going to be already like an endearing.
You almost don't have a choice.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you don't.
Yeah.
It's like, it's this or starve.
Yeah. Yeah. And so much of the allowance, like the how did this happen question, has so much to do with like anybody who can lift, Now, the challenge with that is when you are spending your way out of a problem, you have to eventually figure out a way to like have the money that you're spending
houses to actually pay all that you spend.
Right. Yeah. And in the case of Germany and Hitler's strategy in doing this, it was to expand economically. And expanding economically means absorbing new territories.
What a Roman solution.
Yeah, exactly.
I need more of this. You know what? Call my latest general.
100%.
Fetch my horse.
Yeah. And so the first target of that expansion was Austria. And Austria, first of all, Hitler is not German. He was Austrian. He was born in Austria.
I thought he was. I'm glad you said that. I was like, I swear to God, this motherfucker was Austrian.
Yeah,
like,
he is. He was the Austrian corporal.
History with Katie.
Exactly. Now, like, in fairness, the region of Germany was made up of a bunch of countries for a long time. Like, Germany only became a country in 1871. So, like, during the Civil War, there was no Germany, right? There was Prussia, there was Austria, there was like 100 different kingdom states.
And Bavaria.
Bavaria.
I said that because someone asked me, they're like, why? It was a soccer question. You know how they're like, oh, it's the battle for Bavaria between Augsburg and Bayern. Sorry, Augsburg. Bayern will always reign supreme. Talking about, like, it was... Oh, God, who's in the yellow? Dortmund, duh. And whatever region they were in. And they said, why is Bavaria a thing? Like, what is that? And I was like, history. Katie was like, I'm sorry, like, does the T-Rex arms, like, don't know about the regions of Germany and how it was split into, like, little different, like, kingdom regions almost? Like almost like states is kind of how, for Americans, that's the easiest way to put it,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and they maintained a lot of those states in the centralized republic, and later on. So yeah, so like Austria was always a thing, and there were a lot of Austrians that were like, hey, like we're kind of German too, like you should do. There were some.
They speak German.
They all speak German.
Yeah.
And so a lot of Austrians identify as Germans in the same way that like think of like the continent of America or the continent of Africa. Like you sort of there are these regional identities, but literally the first line of Mein Kampf is about Austrian unification with Germany. So he was obsessed with this idea. Like Hitler's obsessed with this idea of linking Austria and Germany into one superstate, as well as parts of Czechoslovakia too. So Austria was like in the crosshairs, and in particular because it was going to help them economically expand and keep Hitler in power because they could continue doing this.
Because Austria wasn't broke.
Exactly. Yeah, wasn't broke. It had a lot more people, a big tax base, resources that they could use. First, they tried a coup. The assassination. They assassinated the Austrian chancellor. But couldn't take power. So there was this whole moment of
So there's more than one assassination.
Yeah. They tried to do it, didn't work. The next chancellor came into power. He was actually the minister of education before this, so not like a really like the first chancellor was like way more of a strong type of
like a military leader.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not to say Austria was this like bastion of democracy before. Like they had sort of dictatorship tendencies post-war, but like an autonomous state separate from Germany, its own thing. So from the failed coup attempt, they started bankrolling a Nazi party in Austria to try to win elections, to try to basically do the same thing they did in Germany. And the Austrian government knew what was happening. The Austrian chancellor Schuschnigg, who is like the counterpart to Hitler in Austria, is this like kind of mild-mannered dude, says like, look, let's just talk this out. Like, we know what you're doing. We need to talk this out. And so
we can be reasonable.
Yeah, let's just do this. So he goes to Hitler's mountain estate, Berchtesgaden.
Are you fucking kidding me? Fuck off, Hitler.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, anytime anyone says shit like that, I'm like, fuck this
How did you
guy.
have a mountain estate?
Yeah, you bougie bitch.
Dickhead.
So bougie.
He is a bougie dickhead.
He really is. And honestly, like, he goes to this meeting and it's a trap, right? So like he's like, let's discuss.
I was gonna say, I was like, don't go, dude, don't do it. Like it's definitely a trap. Where's Admiral Akbar when you knew it's a trap?
Exactly. If he was there, maybe Schuschnigg would have listened. It basically,
he would have been on the carriage with Schuschnigg and been like, don't go,
don't step
it's
off.
A trap.
You're good.
Don't do it.
It's funny because Schuschnigg was a chain smoker, and he like smoked nonstop, and Hitler did not allow smoking in his presence. He hated cigarette smoke, and so he was like jonesing the whole time while he was in this like high stress meeting with Hitler, and basically walks into the meeting, and Hitler's like, Austria is fucked. I will invade you real fast. And like, I don't for a second want you to think that anybody will lift a finger to save you. Nobody is going to care about like Germany's border problems. This is going to happen. Wow. You're fucked. And he's like, this is not what we were supposed to be talking about. Like,
he's so bold.
Yeah.
Like, what an emboldened little asshole.
Yeah.
And I say little because he was a small man, everyone. And so he had one testicle and he was short.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Screw this guy. There's nothing wrong with being short, first of all. But I'm just saying short people tend to be angry, which if you had to see where I have to go to get to the top shelf of anything, you'd be angry too.
100%.
But as you were saying that, I was like, wow, like this fucking guy, like he didn't give a fuck. He was like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And you know, by the end of that first conversation in the morning, he's like, okay, like Schuschnigg says, okay, like what do you want? Like what, like, everything you said is kind of like we
Yeah.
don't really have the capacity to would be able to defend ourselves. Like, what are you asking for? Like, let's
Right.
get down to brass tacks. And he's like, we'll talk about that later. Let's have some lunch. They have lunch. And by the time lunch is over, he's presented with a document, which is effectively a surrender of Austria, like a full
Uh-huh.
absorption into the Third Reich. And Schuschnigg is like, no. I mean, like, listen, maybe, like, because he's now by himself, he has his aide with him, but here he is,
A
like,
treaty is one thing, but a surrender is
yeah,
another.
Mhm.
yeah, and like,
One's an annexation, another is a trade agreement.
exactly, yeah, and so
Yeah.
he's like, the generals are there, like, they're all like surrounding him and like really muscling him, and he's like, and then and his last
gosh.
attempt is to kind of appeal to formality. He's like, look, I don't have the authority to give you the country by myself. The president has to sign off too, so I got to talk to him. So like, let me get out of here, please.
This dude tried everything.
Yeah. And you know, Hitler's like, well,
Poor
I'll give
Schuschnigg, he tried,
you
man.
7 days. So let me know. And
The original ring.
yeah, you're gonna die in
Hitler's gonna
7
crawl
days.
out of your. Yeah.
Way worse, way
Oh
scarier.
gosh, there you go.
Yeah.
Could you even imagine that? If he couldn't be more
Oh.
horrific, that would be it.
Yeah. And there was a lot of theater in this meeting, right? Like, there was a moment where they were disagreeing with each other, and then
Yes.
Hitler shouts out, he's like, get my generals in here now. And the generals run in, and he's like, get out of here, Schuschnigg. I'm going to talk to my generals now. And then the generals come in, and they're like, what are my orders? And Hitler's like, there's no orders, man. I just wanted you here.
Yeah, just stand
There's
there.
a lot of like theater.
Okay, so when I asked you earlier how intelligent Hitler is, I'm seeing it right now. That was all political jockeying to
Exactly.
this fucking guy.
Yeah. And it's the theme here, because it's a lot of theater, but the purpose is to instill fear. And that's what happened.
And it worked.
Literally, I mean, Schuschnigg said to his aide when he got his first cigarette break after that meeting, he says, I will be surprised if we are not arrested within the next 5 minutes. So he literally thought he may not leave that house alive.
He knew it, man.
So that's like the kind of first half of the story, which gets to the conquest part by telephone, which comes over the period of the next couple of weeks. But crazy setup to start.
So he got out of there.
He did. What
Okay.
happens next is what Schuschnigg will later describe as the 4 weeks agony, which is what he describes as the moments in which Austria was taken over. So all that is set up. Over the next 4 weeks, Hitler's next job is to fake an invasion force. And Goebbels writes about this in his diary. He's like, LOL, like, we're pretending to invade Austria, and it's actually working. Like, they're super scared. They're writing about it. Like, he wrote, like, we're shamming an invasion. The other piece was they wanted to isolate Austria from Mussolini, who was allies with Austria and was like a protector of Austria. And Hitler had his ambassador go to Mussolini and didn't know how he was going to take it. Hitler idolized Mussolini. He was obsessed with him.
I remember that. Because wasn't Mussolini the original, like, anti-Semitic root of all of this?
The dude literally invented
Yeah.
fascism as we know it.
Yeah, like, what a fucker.
Yeah. The year before the beer hall putsch, like that thing that Hitler tried to do in the 1920s, the year before that was Mussolini's coup. So he literally based that.
Just a copy
pants, 100%. Yeah.
I just remember Laurel did a thing on what was it? The nuns were keeping people safe. What was the Jews were all with what was the illness they had?
Syndrome K.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So cool.
Mussolini, man. Just so
Fucking
we all know,
Mussolini.
people throw a lot of shit Germany's way. I think it's important to talk about all the Axis powers. Because Spain, I'm looking at you. I have this like weird outing for like Spain because I feel like nobody ever talks about how they sided with the Nazis and they helped them.
Yep.
With like World War II, especially with like submarine warfare and shit. Listen, I haven't forgotten. I've got a long memory.
Well, and just like a quick aside, like the fact that the dude that teamed up with Hitler who was in charge of Spain, didn't stayed in power until the 1970s.
Yep.
Right? Like he was.
Nobody talks about that, do they?
Nope. Crazy. So all this is happening. They're trying to isolate Austria from Mussolini. Mussolini shocks the Germans by saying, all right, yeah, like do what you got to do.
I'm surprised he didn't fight back.
He saw the writing on the wall and was like, I think Germany is going to be a rising power, and if I needed to pick a winner, it's going to be my fellow fascist.
So he wanted them on his side. So it was almost like a peace deal.
Exactly. It was a fight that he did not want. And, Mussolini always talked a big game, but they, even at the time of the outbreak of the war, they were not ready for a war of that type of scale. So
they were all too busy feasting by the seaside. Italians, man, you got to get them away from the lunch table first.
Good luck with that. Yeah.
They do have the finest wine and best pasta in the world. So, I get it.
Right. Wouldn't you? Right. Yeah. That's what I would do. And like Hitler was so excited. There's actually a recording of this like interaction when he found out that Mussolini was going to be cool with it. He was like, tell him that he's like, I will do anything for him now. Like, tell him that I will be side by side. Oh, and then tell him, like, I love him. He was so fangirling. There's this, like, I put it in the book, too. Like, there's this interaction where you can, like, literally hear him jumping up and down in your head of, like, how stoked he is that Mussolini is cool with all this. It's wild.
This has been one of the most illuminating conversations of my life, Michael.
Amazing. Good.
That's it. I'm moving. I grant a motion to put this book in schools. We need to talk about narcotics use and the lead up to World War II. I feel like we've really glossed over some important shit right now.
Yep. So Schuschnigg had one last ace in the hole, and that was to say, all right, let's put it to a vote, people of Austria. I'm going to set up a plebiscite, like a vote, a national vote, popular vote. Yes, be part of Germany. No, stay in an independent Austria. And the consensus was the vast majority of Austrians did not want to be absorbed into Germany. There was a huge movement to do this, but it was not the majority. And if it was put to a vote, it would have been struck down. Hitler knew this too, and it made him furious when he found out that he was going to set up this vote, this national, that Schuschnigg was going to do this vote. And so it basically triggered action. And what happened over, this was in, I think, late March of 1938. What happened was the series of phone calls that took place over a 7-hour period where in Berlin, Hermann Göring, the number 2 guy, chief operating officer of the Third Reich, was in Berlin phoning Vienna because in Vienna, the Nazis had installed a stooge, like a spy, into the Austrian cabinet. This was part of that meeting that Hitler had with Schuschnigg that was like, all right, well, you have to at least do these 3 things. And one of those 3 things was give yourself a new head of state security, who, by the way, was a Nazi and a Nazi sympathizer. So he's a cabinet member now. This guy, Seyss-Inquart was his name, very Austrian name. And he,
sneaky bastard.
Yeah, so sitting in the cabinet while all these debates are happening about what they're doing, he's just like, yeah, it's like a fly on the wall.
Giving all the inside information.
And so he's phoning Berlin of like giving them updates on what's happening. And so over a series of phone calls, Göring is phoning Austria to basically supercharge this annexation of Austria immediately. And because every single phone call that went in and out of Göring's office was transcribed for their records, we literally have the exact words that were spoken and they were translated during the Nuremberg trials into English. And so we actually like have a script of how these phone calls went.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like, I won't like read them, but like, I'll basically tell you what those phone calls were, and what happened.
What a piece of information to have. I mean, at those trials, like, what a piece of information. Because I feel like people, like, we go into World War II, like, knowing the outcome, but, like, the Americans had no clue any of this was going on until we marched through France and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
shit. Like, not a clue in the world.
It's insane. So the first phone call is when a decision is basically made, because when Hitler finds out about this vote, he freaks out. He tells them, like, we're just going to invade now. And the Austrian cabinet is like panics, and they're like, fine, just cancel the vote, right? And then stop the invasion. So they agree to cancel the vote. Seyss-Inquart comes out of the cabinet room, calls Berlin, talks to Göring and says, hey, they're canceling the vote, just letting you know. Göring says, let me talk to Hitler. He comes back, he has talked to him, and he says, that's not enough anymore. Now the cabinet needs to resign. Chancellor Schuschnigg needs to resign, and they need to be replaced by you. You, Ingvart, are now going to be the Chancellor of Austria. Talk to the Chancellor, talk to the President of Austria, and it needs to happen in 2 hours. If I don't hear back from you in 1 hour, I'll assume that it's done. Hangs up. That's the first call.
He's like a professional
What?
bully.
Yeah, he is.
He's so good. Like, I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but like I've had moments where I have won arguments like this because the boldness of my personality knows no bounds. I'm not a fucking dictator. I'm just probably trying to get an extra piece of cake, but it's the same strategy. And like, whoa.
Yeah.
I hate to say this out loud. I'm almost impressed at his audacity and also disgusted. Like,
Yeah.
oh
It's
my
yeah, holy shit.
It's
Whoa.
wild.
He had for someone with one testicle, he was brazen in the balls for all of this. Like,
Well, he had a 2-testicled guy who was delivering the message and was way more bullied
oh, that's
too.
right, yeah.
So to your point about, like, did he have
That's
good
a
people
little
around
damaging.
him?
That
He was
was it.
probably taller as
Way
well.
taller, but also on way more drugs. So, you know, there's a mixed bag.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the drugs do help. They do embolden one. So
totally. So, so the next call is from Austria to Berlin. Ingvard calls. It's like an hour after that. He calls Göring. Göring picks up. Ingvard's like, hey, good news. Chancellor Schuschnigg is going to resign. He told me. And the next person that needs to resign is the president. So that hasn't happened yet. He's like, we're trying to get to him, but that has not happened. And he's like, Göring's like, okay, well, you as his successor is a firm demand. Like that is part of whatever happens. It's not just enough for him to resign. So that needs to happen. Let me know when it happens. You know, I'll give you another 30 minutes. Hangs up. That's the next call. So already, like, within an hour, like the head of the country is resigned. So that's already happened.
Yeah. I mean, just in 2 phone calls, I'm like, that's a lot that's
Yeah.
happened. Just those 2
So,
phone calls.
was
Like those couple hours.
Germany like? I feel like a lot of this is posturing. And there's a lot of damage that could be done if both parties decide to go to war. And there's a lot of posturing that's happening right now. They're peacocking. And what if Austria had just been like, no, you know what? Ficking dick. Fuck you. I'm not doing it. Like,
That's
what would have
the answer is that this would not have happened. Like, yeah,
shut the fuck
it's
up.
it.
I knew it.
I mean, that's the whole point of this, right? Is that fear is what stopped them from preventing this bad outcome. There was no invasion that was going to
You
happen.
cannot make decisions in fear, champions.
Exactly. So that is 100%. This is all posturing from the Germans. There is no invasion force.
You just validated my favorite saga. I just want you to know that. I know it sounds stupid, but it's the saga of Fenrir, where the Norse gods are so fearful of him and what he can do that they turn on him. Laurel, I don't know if you knew this, because he was actually part of the Asgard. I know this is like a story, but I draw so much from this because in a moment of fear, they turned on him and made him their greatest enemy. It's the most self-fulfilling prophecy you could ever see. And I think there's so much that can be learned from that. So, don't ever let fear rule your fucking. Oh,
No,
all right, I'm sorry. I'm getting all
it's
feisty
100%
now.
the moral of this story is do not let fear decide, make the decisions for you. So like, yeah. And speaking of fear, the next phone call from Austria to Berlin is an extremely fearful one. So the insider, like the Nazi stooge inside the Austrian Zeissingfahrt, the guy who's been communicating with Germany, is now in the room with the Austrian president. And so not the guy who resigned, the guy's, the head of state dude, ceremonial. He's in the room with him. And he asked one of his young staffers to call and give an update to Göring because it's been a while and he needs to know what's going on. So this young, super scared aide is about to talk to the most powerful Nazi like in the world. And he's like, okay, so the plan, like, he calls and he's nervous and he's on the phone with him and he's like, okay, so we do. We literally do. And he's like, listen, we're he's in the room with the president now. The cabinet is going to be dissolved, but the president is refusing to step down. And the cabinet can't be dissolved until past the deadline that you set. So we need more time. And Göring is like, no, there is no more time. And he starts screaming at the like laying into this like probably like a 20-something-year-old like young officer. And he's like, no, this is going to happen now. And within that call, something happens where this aide starts lying to protect himself. And he's like, actually that is happening. And Göring's like, it is? And he's like, yeah, like the cabinet's going to be dissolved. Right. Yeah. It's like, whatever you say, man. And the president's going to step down and like, he already agreed to it. And Göring's like, good. All right. Like, all right, here's what you do next. And he starts giving him orders and he's like, okay. Yeah, I'll do anything.
To be fair, to be shouted at in German, I think most of us would say things. Actually, I'd shout back at you in German. You want to fucking go there with me? I'll kick your ass. But, but all that aside, like that would be a very intimidating thing as well. What an insecure toddler man thing to do. Wow.
Oh no, sorry. I was just thinking, like you just fulfilled one of my many moments in which I'll like read a news headline or some event. I'm like, oh, who's got to be the aide, the sad sack who's got to deliver that news to somebody, and be like, so
hand the phone to me, I'll take care of it.
That kind of thing. To go up the chain, but like to be in that position of like aide to like, there's no going up the chain. That's like he's got to talk directly to the stickhead. And I just was like, oh no, that's the worst version of who's that asshole that's got to break the news that I play with myself in my head. Like,
yep.
Who's that sad asshole who's got to deliver that news?
Yeah.
Oh, him.
So if Austria had stood up to them, you're saying Germany could not have made good on their threat.
Even if they did invade, it would have been an international crisis. It would have been a total shit show. And it would have weakened them, even if they were successful, dramatically weakened them to the point where they wouldn't. I mean, it would have been very bad. And that continues to be a theme. Like there's before and after this, there's all these moments where it could have pretty much stopped a lot of this stuff. So like this guy's like scared. He gets off the phone, and like 30 minutes later, it's like a very short period of time after, Göring gets another call. This time it's from Ingvart, the guy in Austria who's in charge. And he's like, all right, so here's the update. The president is refusing to step down. It's really not going that well. And Göring is like, wait, what? Like the guy I just talked to said everything was good. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, no. And he's like, what? What do you mean it's all good? Like, no, like this isn't happening. We're struggling. Like the president isn't stepping down. He's being really stubborn. And he's like, this changes everything. Like Göring is like now losing his mind. And he's like, we started moving troops not to invade, but to like occupy because we thought we were getting in. So like that's already moving. Like everything's in motion. And he's like, wait. And so now they're confused. They're yelling past each other.
And the aid
Exactly.
was nowhere to be
What?
found because
Yeah.
he dipped the fuck out. He was
Totally,
like,
yeah.
absolutely
And
not.
so basically Goring says,
No way.
listen to me very clearly. This is what's going to happen now. You are going to walk into the room where the president is of Austria, and you will tell him that if he does not resign, you will arrest him. And that is what you're going to do. And you will take part as chancellor. You will take ownership. You are just now going to happen. And if he couldn't make that happen, if he could not get that message in 4 hours, we will do it now in 4 minutes. Click, hangs up. And so, yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. So that is like, yeah.
I didn't think I could hate Nazis more,
Yeah,
but you've done
good.
it. You've really done it. Like, it's when you hear the way they speak to people who are protecting their own sovereignty, like these
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
kumquats. Like, absolutely, like, oh my gosh.
Punch a
Yeah,
Nazi in
when
the
you get a
face.
chance.
I'm going to take that Dr. Jones
Yeah,
philosophy.
It's
yeah.
not a bad idea. So now everything's sort of officially happening. I mean, literally before that phone call hangs up, he goes, I am now like appointing you as chancellor, right? Even though he has no authority, he's like, you are the chancellor now, act accordingly, arrest everybody else, like you're in charge. And we're moving in like the troops.
That's like someone from the opposite team being like, no, he's
Exactly.
the captain now. You'd be like, what? You're not even part of this conversation. Like, see yourself out of it. Like,
Yeah.
who do you think you are?
So the chancellor, Schuschnigg, the guy who was at the original meeting in with Hitler in Germany, and the guy who resigned first, the probably the most scared dude out of all of this, does have this last moment of bravery. He decides, and we don't really know if this was the president's idea or the chancellor's idea, but he cuts into every radio in Austria over an emergency broadcast feed and gives a speech and says basically everything that's happening over the last week. And he says, I need to tell
Somebody
the
had
Austrian
to.
people everything that's happening. The German government has given us an ultimatum. And if that ultimatum was not met, they would invade Austria. The president has asked me to tell our troops to offer no resistance because we're not in a position, even at this moment, to shed blood. And all of the accounts that you're hearing out of Germany that says there's unrest and disruption by the workers in Austria and that there's protests beyond the government's control are lies. And so I tell you now, like, bidding you farewell,
Imagine that.
with like the depths of my heart, like, God protect Austria, Auf Wiedersehen.
Wow.
Yeah. So after that, there are some phone calls that start to fly in from Germany. They hear the broadcast, they're freaking out. Ingvart, the Nazi stooge, is there. He says, hey, did you hear the broadcast? He goes, yeah, I heard it. Like, what's going on? Like, give me the updates. I'm going to give the order to march in. At this point, it's almost 8:00 at night. I'm giving the order for the troops to march in. Anybody who offers resistance, you should tell them that they will be court-martialed. That includes the president. And you are the chancellor. I'm sending in some of our special ops people to make sure that everything can be secured. You need to make sure that, anybody in the government who is refusing, you should shoot them. And Ingvart replies to Göring and says, Herr Field Marshal, we are the government now. And that's the last phone call.
Fuck, dude.
That's intense. Meanwhile, Katie's over here like, hand me the phone from like 80 years ago. Hand me the fucking phone and I'll tell him what the fuck is up.
Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah. And there was a fake story made up after the fact that a telegram was sent by the Austrian government to come, Germans, please, we're losing control of our population. Please come in and invade. We need help.
The nest of lies and illusions.
Yeah, Portland's a war zone. I mean,
Exactly.
Austria is
Oh, Chicago is so out
Yeah.
of control.
So, but
Yeah.
to your point, KT, like the moral of this story is at no point was Germany actually going to successfully invade and make good on their threats. All of this was governed by fear. And if the parties involved had stood up, and it's admittedly one of the most difficult positions that anybody might have been in up to that point. So it would have taken a tremendous amount of courage to do so. But it would have prevented the worst.
What a beautiful tale of how fear shouldn't rule. Yeah, that's actually really funny you would say that. That is that particular, like I said, that saga or that story from one of the sagas or whatever has always, it's been like one of those like most deeply meaningful to me, because I'm like, do you know, we never would have had this problem if you had just, not let fear make your decisions for you, because it will.
You're right. And like I said, like there are moments before this when the average person their decisions were governed by fear and they didn't realize the power that they had. There are moments after this where even more powerful leaders of countries, like the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Neville Chamberlain, when Czechoslovakia was being threatened, the president of France, who were allies with Czechoslovakia and basically abandoned them because they were afraid that Hitler would start a new war, which he ended up doing anyway. Yep. But by the time it got to Poland, it was too late. There was, yeah.
Yeah, no, they were way too powerful. As we all just sit in silence, like, that is wild.
Yeah.
Damn. Wow. Thanks for that. That little bit out of the trench coat of World War II. You want to hear some really weird, fucked up shit about how Austria was conquered or was taken with the telephone? Would you like to hear how that shit?
It wasn't even.
Let's pull that out.
And again, there's like these moments where I think the key is also like just how tenuous all of it was. I mean, something very similar happened later in that year with Czechoslovakia, and the president of Czechoslovakia was like summoned to Berlin and literally collapsed because he had a heart condition. Like they think he might have had some kind of heart attack in the German chancellery in the middle of the night, and they were running around like chickens with their head cut off. They're like, the fucking president of Czechoslovakia just collapsed in the German chancellery. Everybody's gonna think we killed him. We need to revive him, and they're like injecting him with like drugs and stuff to just try to. Yeah, probably to wake him. It was like that scene in Pulp Fiction where, like, right. That basically happened in the German chancellery in 1938 with the Czechoslovakian president. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
So there's all these moments when like everything was way less buttoned up than the history leads us to believe.
Yeah, history doesn't really tell it correctly, because even I'm thinking back to like my history book when I was reading it, it said, like, I distinctly remember it saying, well, they didn't like it, but they were afraid of what the Germans of what basically the power that was up against them. And it's
there's so much behind that, right? Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
It's it reminds me a lot of like when you say all these like weird moments that were happening. It's that when they are in Lothlorien, it's happening. But hit that counter, and your quest stands but on the edge of a knife. What does she say? Shit, what's the next? It's something about if you move in one way or another now, you will fail. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, wait to fill me with like, oh, you can do this. Like, nah, you are just like, if you don't, we all die. Like, well, thank you for that. For summing that up. Right?
Right. Yeah. Give me like a lighter, like a necklace that's cool. Like, thanks.
Right here is our brightest star. Cool. What exactly they're gonna do for me? Like, can I put the ring on it and it like deactivates it, or like what the hell? Yeah. Which,
To
don't
help
get
you
me
on your
wrong, is
quest.
great in like giant spider caves,
Yep.
but other than that, completely useless.
If we
events.
all saw that, if we all were
Yeah.
aware of that and knew that those little moments can be tilted by small groups of average people, we would have a lot,
Mhm.
less of the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
This got deep as hell, you guys.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel it. Let that wash over you. What's next for
Right?
you, Michael Trapani?
Uh,
What are you working on next? Speaking of small
yeah,
moments and leading to big
yeah. So
moments.
after the How to Start a War book, my next work is about revolution, and it's focusing on the Russian Revolution, because, in my opinion, I love focusing on
Oh.
turning points in history and moments when I think that the Russian Revolution was a true bottom up revolution, unlike something like the American Revolution, which was just like rich people here saying, fuck those rich people over there. Like, we're going to be in charge
Yep.
now. The Russian
Yeah, okay.
Revolution was a true attempt to, and probably maybe the last attempt with as much significance to remake human civilization and society as a whole. And
Mhm.
they had it
Mhm.
in their grasp, and then they lost it. And it's sort of an epic saga of the years before, the moments of, and the years that followed. I'm a sucker for Russian literature, and nobody writes a tragedy like a Russian writer. And so, yeah, I'm
How
inspired
does
by
that
a
not
lot
surprise
of.
me?
They love it. They're so. I mean,
They love tragedy.
nothing makes me feel the way that like a Dostoevsky, or a Tolstoy feels. So
Yeah.
Don't be a
true
hater.
Russian tragedy, or at least an attempt to try to create one of those. But yeah, it's like it gives me life. I'm so happy. Yeah, I'll let you know in 100
Well, that
years
I
when it's
can't wait
done.
to read. Oh, okay. I'll be waiting. I'll be knocking.
Just digging through that material. Just so much
Right?
there. Just
I got like super into, I don't know that much about it, but I was very intrigued by the little bits I've heard from it, because when I was a kid, probably be dating myself at this point, but that
Mhm.
Anastasia from 20th Century
Same.
Fox was a big deal when I was a kid.
Really.
Also, music in that one, a banger as well. And um I remember I was like, everyone's taken in by the mystery of what happened to Anastasia, right? Which we have the answer.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise
Yeah.
anymore, because they
Yep.
found her
They
and
all
Alexei in
died.
the graves
Yeah.
together. Yeah, out in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Well, that
whole.
doesn't
I mean,
surprise
yeah.
me, but
That the thing
um
that I think about when I think about that story is that so much of that story that maybe the average American, or frankly, I think the average person knows is, okay, the Tsar, Nicholas, Lenin, Stalin, like the people who ended up taking power, the royal family. It represents less than 1% of the population, even the industrial workers. The makeup of Russia was 80% peasant, rural, poor, farm living poor. Then there was a small, more significant of industrial workers, like the proletariat that they would refer to themselves as, in the cities.
in the cities, like,
Right.
yeah,
And
which
then
are the
there
most
was
populated
the
parts of
royal
that country.
family, like the super wealthy. And so even the story
Yeah.
told from the perspective of the revolutionaries is 15% of the people. I mean, no one in the like
Wow.
Russian villages read Karl Marx. Like, a lot of them couldn't even read. So, but could do a
Wow.
whole episode on this, but like, a lesser, there's basically like their own
Don't tempt me.
parallel revolution in the countryside that happened at the same time, that without Lenin basically making concessions to that big peasant group, it would not have been successful, because there was the February Revolution where they overthrew the Tsar, and then there was like 8
Sure.
months of a provisional government, which only ended when Lenin and the Bolsheviks did a coup over that provisional government, and that's the October Revolution. So that wasn't all one big thing, like Lenin tells the story together, but it was like, not
Lenin
not
says
an
a lot
honest,
of things.
right?
I think like what I found most upsetting about that is
Yeah.
like how children get treated in these times.
It's extreme, yeah, and you
Extremely
have to
upsetting.
tell the full context of how many children starved to death under the Tsar, and it's not just like,
Yeah.
it's not that it just happened. There was a huge state-run effort to maintain the autocracy that was in place and to keep the system in place that purposely suppressed, tens of millions of people. And so, we know a lot about the royal family who was killed because they were the royal family, but how many untold millions were killed at the hand of the head of that family? I don't think the children deserved to die.
Right. Starvation.
But
you can understand why they were so emotionally motivated to wipe
you
out
sort
any
of,
last reminder of that family.
Yeah, I like, it's hard for me to be like, cool, that whole family should have died. But I do think that certainly not in charge anymore. And I think a trial would have been healthier.
Makes
No,
sense. I mean,
never,
violence against
never
children
cool.
is never cool.
I think a trial and perhaps a public sentencing, whatever that sentencing was, would have been a better route. Yeah, for the adults.
Oh, what a project!
Sorry to bring it down like that, as I'm like,
yeah. I mean, what a hell of a topic to be jumping into. So no wonder it's been taking you a little while to write, but we look forward to that when it's out. Come talk about that. When I have you back to talk about some Nazis on drugs, some hopped up Nazis.
Honestly, there's gonna be quite a few times where I'll be like, "Hey,
I'd be honored." Yeah, let's do it. I'm down. What
a weird little adventure that would be. And pluck that out of the inner pocket of the history trench coat. I'm going to still stick with my history tapestry, but I like the trench coat of World War II. I'm going to probably keep that one.
That's where
maybe.
We're the best.
It's very specific.
You go to the trench coat after the tapestry has been examined.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's been a long time coming, so we're so glad to have you here hanging out with us in the smoke circle, and just like super duper appreciate your time. Folks, if you want to follow what Michael's doing, we've got all of his social media, links to the book, links to just everything Michael Trapani. It's going to be down the show notes, so you can click on that. But we'll be back again in a couple weeks. This is my last episode for season 6, but Katie will be back again for her final episode in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, folks, get money, get high, give love, and
don't let fear make your decisions for you. I think we kind of have to end on that as a little closing note there, because honestly, that's where this all led us. You have more influence and power than you realize.
Bye.
Yeah. So.